use a 22mm socket, take the lug nuts off. And remove the wheel. I'm going to take the brake caliper off with the bracket. Take these two bolts out on the back side. Use a 15mm socket. Now grab the caliper and bracket, slide it off. You can use a brake hanger and just hang it from the coil spring. Use a T30 socket, take the screw out. Take the rotor off. Take this axle nut off, use a 32mm socket. Now the wheel speed sensor is right here. Use the 10mm socket, take that bolt out. And use some needle nose pliers and try to get that sensor out. You can wiggle it back and forth a little bit. There we go. And just try to twist it so you can just slide it out of the knuckle. And that's good. Just set that aside. You only take this out so that you don't break it. There's two bolts on the top. I'm going to take those out first. Use an 18mm socket. Get in through here on the back side. And over here. Loosen that up and take those out. There's a bolt behind this control arm, so what we're going to do is get that control arm out of the way. You need to support the control arm first. Use either a screw jack or something to support the control arm. And then we're going to take this bolt out. I'm going to use a 21mm wrench and put it on the bolt head. And then take this nut off, use a 21mm socket. Now just take a punch and a hammer and just hammer that bolt out. Carefully take this bolt out. With that bolt out of the way, just lower this down slightly. With this control arm lowered, if you have a swivel socket, you should be able to access that bolt. Bottom, just be careful, and you don't want to mess up the boot. And take that bolt out. To protect the boot, I'm just taking a piece of plastic. Just going to put it in between the socket and the boot. You can just cut an old milk carton or milk jug. Now the bolt is completely unbolted from the hub and the socket. It's just sitting right there. I'm going to leave that there until we put the new hub on, and then we can tighten it back up. Now from the back side of the hub, just take a hammer and just give it a tap. And there we go, slide it up. Take the new hub. I'm just going to put a thin coat of anti-seize on here. Just like that. And if this area is extremely rusty, you can use a die grinder or a wire brush. Just clean it up a little bit. And slide the hub on. line up the holes, get the bolts started. Oops. Before you tighten up the top screws, get the bottom one started, and then you can tighten them all up. You are supposed to replace these bolts when doing this job. Torque these bolts to 66 foot-pounds. And the same with the other ones. After you torque them all, you need to go an additional 75 degrees. If you have a torque angle meter, you can do that. If not, do the best you can. Now we can raise the lower control arm back in position and put this bolt back in. Just line this up and put the nut on. This bolt is also supposed to be replaced when you do this job. And then torque this bolt to 110 foot-pounds. And then an additional 60 degrees. Do the best you can if you don't have an angle meter. Now I can lower the screw jack. Take the wheel speed sensor and get that line back up. Leader. And you can put the bolt back in. And get it started. And snug it down. And put the nut on. Now take a pry bar and prevent the hub from spinning and torque this nut to 111 foot-pounds. Now we're going to loosen this nut 45 degrees and then torque it again to 185 foot-pounds. Just put a little thin coat of anti-seize on here. Now install the rotor. Make sure you line that up with the threaded hole and put the screw back in. And just snug that up. Now take the caliper hanger off. Slide the caliper over the rotor and put the bolts back in. These bolts should be replaced when you do this job also, and torque these to 74 foot-pounds and then an additional 60 degrees. Put the wheel back on. Put the lug nuts on. Now I'm going to torque these lug nuts to 111 foot-pounds in a star pattern to tighten the wheel down evenly. Go around again, double check.